We're good. All right. Well, here we are. Good afternoon. My name, or maybe good morning, whatever it is, wherever you are. My name is Ricardo. I'm happy to introduce our story today. I'm here with Verizon, but our story was beyond that. It's about parenthood, it's about people, it's about pride. It's called Proud Parents. Now, we encourage you to be engaged with us. You'll hear questions from our presenters where you can use the chat box down below to interact with us. And we'll start actually with some introductions from our team, and then I'll walk you through the agenda for the day. But before we do the introductions, we have a quick public service announcement. So, Kima, I'm going to let you go ahead and do that for us.
Thank you. So, folks, we recognize that some of our experiences as part of this community around parenting and parent relationships can be a little tough, and there can be a lot of big feelings involved with that. So I want to give you kind of a trigger warning or a content warning to let you know that while this is meant to be an open conversation and it's meant to share joy and commiserate on dirty diapers and all of the things that are around parenting, if you do start feeling some of those big feelings, take a breath and allow yourself the grace to go through them. We're here with you, and we want you to feel comfortable and safe to express that in the chat with us. And if you need to, one-on-one, one of us, any of us here can certainly be an ear to listen if needed. So that's my little PSA. Thank you, Ricardo. I'm going to pass it right back to you.
Well, thank you. Back to a regular scheduling. So again, my name is Ricardo, and we'll start out with introductions. I happen to be the first one. My name is Ricardo Gaddis Morris. My pronouns are he, his, him. My home name is Papi. Now, as far as the role that I play within our employee resource group, I am a director of allyship for Prism, but I also serve as a project manager of engagement for a Verizon consumer group. Now, I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to my colleague, Kima, to do her introduction. So, Kima.
Thank you. So as Ricardo said, my name is Kima Dozier. I do use she, her pronouns. At home, I'm mama, finally mama. And at Verizon, I wear a lot of hats. So as our ERG leader, I am the global chair for programs and events. I support all of the warm fuzzies that we push out. I'm also a senior analyst for our workforce planning and analysis team to make sure that we are where our customers need us to be. I support the Verizon Consumer Group. All right, your turn, Bestie.
All right, hello everyone. My name is Irene Druin. I use pronouns she, her, hers. At home, my little human likes to call me mom, mommy, or mama bear. As far as our employee resource group goes, I am the director of outreach and socialization. And then in my day job, I am a project manager for our voice and network customer solutions team. I also am a Black woman wearing a maroon lipstick, a white t-shirt, and I have my hair in like a black, like curly bob, I guess, so to speak. And then I will go ahead and hand it right over to my good friend, Katila.
Hi, so glad to have you all here. My name is Katila Warner. My pronouns are she, her, hers. At home, I am mom or mommy. I won't let that mommy one go. I am a white woman wearing glasses. I have straight light brown hair, and I'm also wearing a white shirt. You can't see them with our camera view, but we're all wearing our Prism gear today to show our pride. With Prism, I am a local chapter lead. I love supporting events. As my day-to-day role for Verizon, I'm a customer service employee communications professional. I work with our executive teams on a lot of their messaging, and I get to bring some of that over to Prism as well. So I'm going to pass it on to my dear friend, Jay.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jay Washburn. I use they, them pronouns, and I also use she, her pronouns. I am the global operations lead for Verizon Prism in my day job. I guess I do that other stuff during the day too, but at Verizon, I'm a solutions architect within Verizon's business group. I am affectionately called dad at home, although I have twin sons who are about to turn 18. So affectionate might be pushing it more than I'd like to admit, but I love them and they're great kids. I'm gonna turn it back over to Ricardo.
All right, well, thank you very much. We're gonna go ahead and go into our agenda. So if we can go to the next slide. So here's what we're gonna take you through today. Our story started out with our introductions, as you just heard. We're gonna have Jay take us through Prism, who we are, what our mission is. That's an employee resource group. Then we're gonna go ahead and introduce you to what Proud Parents means. How did it start? Where the ideas come from, and really how it has impacted our team members. And then we're going to get the perspective of some panelists that were part of the experience and just really hear what this Proud Parents, how this movement has really made a change in our organization and in the point of view that we all have as parents or in the relationship of what parenthood is. And then we've got some surprise content and not included here that you'll get to experience right after that conversation. So why don't we go ahead and get started, and Jay will give us the story of who Prism is. So Jay.
Thanks, Ricardo. So Verizon Prism, first, let me say elevated, empowered, and authentic. Those are the words we choose to use when we're showing up. And we're very proud to be showing up today under that heading. First up, Prism, although capitalized, doesn't stand for anything specifically. So it's a name that we adopted from our colleagues from Verizon Media. In 2019, Verizon and Verizon Media brought our ERGs together. And at that time, Verizon has about 10 ERGs. Where there was overlap, we were able to collaborate and bring our groups together. We had a little bit of a vote, and Prism won hands down. And we use that name still to this day, even though Verizon Media has left the Verizon ranks. They're still in our hearts, and they're a part of us forever by using that moniker, Verizon Prism. So we certainly love our friends in Yahoo. Real quick, the membership for Verizon Prism is right around 5,000 members. Membership has grown from about 3,000 members in 2019 to 5,000 members strong today. We have 27 chapters with membership in 15 different countries. And as you hear today, as Kimma goes through some things, she spearheaded much of the Proud Parents programming. When it comes to programming, when we put that together, as an ERG, there are 4 things, and a minimum of one of them has to be represented whenever we're formulating programming. It's career, it's community, it's culture, and it's our customers. So from a career perspective, that may be program development, professional development, I should say, along with mentoring, comes in the form of lunch and learns, everybody's favorite, especially during COVID. Isn't everything a lunch and learn? For culture, it could be heritage or pillar months that we're driving through what makes us us, and what makes us a collective group to dispel some myths that may be out there and stereotypes. From a customer perspective, that could be focus groups. It could also include supplier diversity and some customer insights. And lastly, community. Very special to me, we have programming around volunteer efforts and community outreach. And that's really where we get to show up in our communities as our authentic selves and try to bring about positive and impactful change. So now that you know a little bit about Prism, I'm going to turn things over to Kimma, who will tell you about Proud Parents programming. Take it away, Kimma.
Thank you. That is a mouthful, Proud Parents programming. So I want to tell you a little bit about where this kind of came from, sort of the conception, if you will. That's not meant to be as creepy as it sounds, but Proud Parents was kind of born out of feedback. Last year, as with the most of D&I spaces, we kind of made a goal for ourselves to make intersectionality the focus of our programming. We wanted to make sure that we can share how powerful our stories are, create these intersectional and collaborative sessions with our other ERDs, show that we are so much more than the letter that our personality and our identity represents. And so we did. We started sharing these stories, and some of them were coming out stories and how our parents handle it. Some of them, the one that I think kicked us off and you know, kind of had my brain start was sharing what it was like telling mom she's going to be a grandma. So if you look on the screen there, that's a picture of of an event that we had with Somos. Somos is our Latinx ERG, and that's Ricardo there, being all famous, looking all beautiful. And Ricardo shared this story about what it was like coming out to his mom, what it was like when mom became a grandma, and what that process was. And you guys, the feedback was incredible. People started sending in messages to our inbox, wanting to know if we could hear more of that kind of stuff. So I ran with it. I took it and I put together a team of parents and non-parents, LGBTQ and ally, people from my organization and from all the other organizations at Verizon. And we just started brainstorming and kind of creating these connections. And we started talking about how many different ways parenting can be displayed. So we talked about adoption and fertility, and we talked about empty nesters, and we talked about how do I tell my boss my baby's on the way and I gotta go catch her. We talked about all those things. We also talked about what it was like when your team celebrates Mother's Day, but you can't call mom. And we talked about what it was like when your firstborn has a fever and you don't have anyone to call because they don't want to talk to you right now. So you get a work mom or a work dad or a work parent or a work bestie. And that really kind of opened up how important this program was going to be and what we wanted to achieve. So introducing Proud Parents, it kind of grew from that experience of us wanting to just connect with one another. So I want to connect with you all now. I want to stop and take a moment. And if you don't mind, pretty please, put in the chat what you would share. Are you a mom? Are you a dad? Are you a parent? Did you go through adoption? Do you talk to mom and dad? Did you maybe not? And now you do? I want to hear what that looks like for you. So if you will, drop that in chat. Let me know how you would show up on one of our panels. And I'll tell you a little bit more about the programming. So Jay, you can go ahead and go to the next slide there. So as Jay mentioned, Proud Parent, or all of our programming lives within the 4 C's, or if you will, the 4 pillars of how we create content. And one of my proudest moments was knowing that this was going to hit all 4. This program touches on our culture because we create an internal culture of inclusion and belonging. It empowers our communities. We show up by inviting them, bringing them the nonprofits and the community healthcare leaders and our advocates. We level the career playing field by getting on a call where we're having emotional connections with VPs and executives and frontline agents and retail workers. And probably the most exciting piece for me, and the thing that I think may be one of the most proud moments for me, is by sharpening the skills that we need to show empathy to one another and by showing up for one another in these spaces, we're becoming a stronger workforce for our customers because our customers kind of deserve that. Everybody deserves that, right? So we were able to kind of reach this 4C little glowing space where all of them are represented in our programming. And of course, you know, that kind of is where we are bringing this to you now, is by showing that value that we found just by activating our stories and sharing our experiences and being real with one another. All right, let's go to the next slide. Oh, I think I froze.
All right. So I know that on the next slide, we're going to be talking about the voices, or giving parents a voice in the workplace. There we are. So here are some photos of us and our families. And by the way, Kim, as you were talking about some of the different ways in which we showed up during Proud Parents, it just took me back a little bit, and I actually started getting a little bit emotional just remembering those moments and those calls that we couldn't make, or, you know, the calls that we had to explain. So, you know, I know we all shared our home name or our parent name whenever we're at home, but I'd love to hear what the rest of you are called. So, you know, Poppy, Mommy, Mama Bear was the first time I've heard that. Irene, that's beautiful. So I'd love to hear some of the original names, or maybe some of the common names that match our names, that you're either that you call your parents or that they call you at home. So they're Mama B. I see Mom C. Okay, I love that one. Or M. That's the easy one. Just M. Mama C. Household CEO.
Household CEO, yes. I love it.
All right. Well, keep those coming.
These are awesome.
Of those. Maybe we can keep a record of all of those. But certainly
Yeah.
here, photos of us with our families. And, something that was really unique about this conversation was that while we are an employee resource group, and this was held for our work peers, it was not a work event only. It really went beyond that. We had people who joined us that were vice presidents, executive leaders, frontline employees, people who are in the middle of the work that we do, and no one really cared about the title. Everyone cared about the things that brought us together, which was the parenthood, which was the human aspect of it, which is really the stories that we could connect to and realize that a lot of the time we feel like we're alone, and the reality is we aren't. There are many people who are going through similar experiences around us, and we can all benefit from sharing our stories because it is our story that gives us the power to be able to encourage others to also have a voice. So we had panelists who are here with us today, who were able to join the conversation, and we'd love to hear what their perspective was as being part of that panel. So I know we have Jay and Irene who joined. So we'll start out with Irene, just telling us what was your experience like by joining the panel and sharing your story.
Absolutely. So one, I just have to say all of these names and children and parenthood and just the whole spectrum that comes along that I'm seeing in the chat is like making my little heart go pitter patter. But I think that's the biggest part of it. Like Ricardo said, this was a platform that allowed me to show up as the other part of who I am. Like people at work know me as a project manager and they hear my why and like why I do the things that I do for work. But having this platform to be able to actually share the experience of being a child, having a child, and then also having some kind of parental role in various people's lives really gave the opportunity for people to see that mom piece and to bring that human aspect back to it. And then coming to home, knowing that like my son may pop in every once in a while, or you may hear him in the background laughing at something, it really gave this authenticness that I really couldn't express in any other fashion. But being able to have this platform to do that allowed me to kind of break down some of those barriers and kind of show up as my human self and even show up for work a little bit more authentic and better, and really being able to approach situations differently because I was able to make that connection with other people that were either going through fertility or going through just the day-to-day. You don't get a pamphlet, you take the baby home, or you go through these processes and there's no like right or wrong way to do it. But this allowed us to really kind of open up, be vulnerable, and share some experiences that truly are touching in various different ways. So that's kind of my thoughts. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Jay.
That was great, Irene. Yeah, I share in those same sentiments. I had an opportunity to be a part of a panel that was for empty nesters, which didn't quite fit where I was at yet. And so part of that was to provide, it seemed as if I was getting future coaching from those who have recently experienced that. And then there are those who have been in that setting for some period of time. And so really my perspective at that point was to ask questions, to be inquisitive, to understand what some of those emotional speed bumps might look like in my very near future. And then for others to rally around that, to ask some questions that are very, very similar. And then, to hear that insight, and for someone who's walking in that path as someone who is a part of the community, how does that look different? Does it look different? The Proud Parent series was, as was mentioned, was a great equalizer. While folks are showing up with different titles and different labels, so to speak, all of us showed up in those moments, at least on the call that I was on. They all showed up as parents. And so that was the hat that everyone wore when they walked in and shared their experience. It just so happens that a few of us are a part of the LGBT community. All of us are allies supporting each other and learning and understanding how we can be more and how we can be present for our children, even when our children aren't necessarily present with us as those who are experiencing that empty nest piece. So extremely insightful. And again, that idea that this is a common thread for a tapestry that we're all weaving as parents, that we have so many commonalities. And quite frankly, even though there were a number of differences, you would think when we all showed up on that call, when you show up as a parent, you have a shared agenda. And it was so beautiful to be able to hear those as stories, experience those stories, and to be a part of this programming, usually as a moderator behind the scenes, wiping away tears as people are walking through some of the most important and emotional things that they can provide as a human, and that is how they love other people and how they allow that love to fill their homes. I'll turn it back to Ricardo.
One thing, well, before you do, one thing I want to share, Kim said, y'all, I get this energy where I'm like, I'm going to tell you stuff. So one thing I think is so important that you both just shared is that you both showed up as parents, and what I think makes this something that I am super proud of, and that I'm proud of our people for showing up as people showed up even when they weren't parents. People showed up when they were in the process of becoming parents. People showed up when they didn't have the relationship that they wanted when they're parents. And then when we had that space for children, because we're all somebody's kid, whether they like us or not, we showed up as somebody's kid, and the community rallied in the same way that we did when we heard the mom telling her story about how her first fertility didn't go through. And we heard about the dad who had to send his kid off to college and let that go. So I really want to kind of shout that out, that, you know, as you're getting into the process as ERG leaders, and we'll talk about the development part next, but as you're getting there, don't be surprised if you are like Jay and myself behind the scenes just bawling, because the community just shows so much love and so much support for one another. So now, okay, I'll stop again. Sorry, I get excited.
Well, it goes back to you, Kim, but you know, you were saying all that, it reminded me of a Celine Dion concert that I was watching, and she said, this song is for all the parents and all the children. And I'm like, that's everybody. This is exactly how this session was. It's something for everyone, and it brought us all together. So I thank you again, Kim, for all the work you did with this too. Anyways, back to you. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so one of the things that we wanted to bring to Out and Equal is not necessarily a how-to, but a hey, let me show you what we did so you can go and do it too, because it feels good when your employees and your members are this engaged. So I want to talk through a little bit about the work part of it. So the idea part of it, that's the fun part. That's when you get together and you cry and you share stories. But then there's the work. How are we going to take something that we plan on doing for a whole year and make it not be stale and make it not monotonous? So here are some things that we put together as we were going through our planning process that I think will help with that. First, explore all of the relationships, not just the parents, but bring in the not the parents, bring in the uncles and the aunts, and don't be afraid to look at what makes your membership and your employees unique. And then when you find that, celebrate it with them. Ask them to come talk to you. Ask them to come talk to each other. That's where that magic starts brewing, and you really start seeing the community show up for one another. Additionally, invite some friends. Life is more fun when you've got other people there. So invite your friends, invite the community leaders and the nonprofits, and find ways to activate allies outside of your business. Because then what that does is that allows you to bring in different perspectives. One thing that I can say that I've learned as a B-teamer, as a Verizon employee, and as an ally in other spaces, that diversity of thought is so overlooked, but it's so critical to how we show up as people, allies and friends and family. So diversify your panel, bring in some non-employees. I love the concept of bringing in kids. You know, in the last year and a half, maybe two, we've all been sharing a Wi-Fi connection with our kids as they do their homework, and we do our schoolwork, or we do our work and they do their schoolwork. And sometimes we're sharing our Wi-Fi connection when they're playing Xbox and learning how to do the floss with the other kids that do the floss. So bring them to you. Ask them to come watch something with you. And when you do that, create something where your members and your employees can do the same. So whether that's a family movie night or a story time, whether that's, you know, just bringing people onto the call, having your kids sit in your lap. I know my daughter sat with me behind the scenes on a lot of our calls. Invite the kids too, because that's the reason why a lot of us get up in the morning, and a lot of us move and get going, and that's our why, as Irene said. So invite the kiddos. Find different ways to embrace intersectionality. As I said earlier, we are so much more than the letter that we represent in our community. So when we have, let's say, Gorgeous Grandmother's Day, invite the author that wrote the book about it. And we have one at Verizon, and she came and read her book for us. Find ways to celebrate what makes us unique. All right, I tried to click my screen like it was going to move. Sorry, Jay. All right. So speaking of our authors, this book that you see on your screen, this was written by our very own Ricardo. So I put this here, and the reason I want to shout this out, one, because it's a great book and you should all go look at it on Amazon, but two, also because it's a really, really fun and I think effective way of driving engagement. We are so much more than just what we do at Verizon. I crochet, so we did another event somewhere else where I got to crochet for people, and Ricardo got to read his book to us. So find your authors, find your doulas and your homeschool teachers and your Little League teachers. Find the people who do things outside of your company and give them a place to come and shine. Be able to create spaces for people to share their parenting pro tips, which was kind of the idea behind some of our events, like the empty nester event, being able to share how they handled it so that we know how to handle it when it's our turn. All right, so now I'm gonna ask you guys to come back to the chat real quick before I pass it to Katila. I want to know what your side hustles are. So if I were gonna invite you to one of our calls, I would love to know if we have any famous authors or any soccer coaches or any things that you would like to share with us and tell us what you do. And while you guys are doing that, I will pass it to Katila.
All right, Kimma, there was a question in the chat, and I don't know if you had touched on that yet. If you saw me distracted, my daughter was running around the house getting ready to leave for the weekend with her dad. So there's those authentic parenting moments. So I just wanted to double check if you saw that question about the kids developing relationships through proud parents.
Yeah. So I kind of am in love with this question. So we have a person who is a member who actually stayed online after the event, after one of our events with the empty nesters, and they wanted to talk about their daughter. Through hearing the stories, through the last, I guess at that point it had been 6 months, the last 6 or 7 months of hearing stories and developing kind of an understanding of what LGBTQ people go through, that person felt like they were getting a better insight into their own child. So I want to say yes to this question based on that experience, and I'll share one of my own, but that person has now had 2 one-on-one coffee dates with me, where we just talk and they express what they're going through and what their thoughts are, and they ask our opinion at, in the Proud Parents channel that we'll talk about here in a second. How do you handle this? And how do I show up as a better parent for my child who is LGBTQ? My own daughter is a little ally until she tells me that she's not. But after every Proud Parents call, I come downstairs and I'm usually crying like a big baby. And she says, tell me about it. And my 9-year-old little girl just wants to hear about these experiences and know that she's in a safe space where I can be vulnerable to her too. So I'm going to say yes. I do feel like we've seen some parent development and some parent-child relationship bonding through this, even if it's just me and one other person. That constitutes as a yes for me. Anyone else on the panel maybe want to share if Proud Parents has helped them with their own children?
I mean, what I'll say is, in the event that I was invited to do the book reading, it was, some kids were part of the conversation, and obviously we were reading it for the kids, and it was fun to just, see them all be a part of it, see their reactions when we were doing the reading, and just have them be a part of an event that maybe it was triggered through our work family, but it extended out to our home families too. And, I think those were the moments where we're able to engage beyond just a learning experience, but really a moment that we were sharing as parents, with parents, with our kids.
Thank you for that.
I love
question.
the way that we've opened things up. We make it comfortable that if people want to bring their kids to events, they're welcome to. We curate things for families, movie nights and such, and some of those things that Kimma had on the last screen or 2 screens ago, just opportunities that people can engage. And I personally truly feel like my allyship and being very vocal and being very involved and letting my daughter be present, even if she wasn't sitting beside me, but hearing and seeing me be involved with Prism and with watching Proud Parent events as a participant, I really feel like that was a part of what helped her feel comfortable to come out to me in a really casual way too. She just had that safe space because she knew what I believed and what I was involved in and who my friends were in this community. So there are lots of connections, with our kids. And I, hear some of the other panelists talking about them being, aunts and uncles and other, family relationships to one another's children. And it's very sweet. So, we really do embrace it in every way. And, like Kimma said, look for those folks that need a friend, a fellow parent, somebody who needs a parental figure in their life. If we can do that, or they might be that for us. So really, we're thinking about those connections. We're thinking about the bonds that have been built through Proud Parents and the programming and activities and things that we have developed. And a really big part of making that successful is continuing those connections and keeping that community going for people so that there's more space to have conversations, to see the visibility of Prism, to know when events are going on, and to speak up when they see something, see an opportunity where they might say, well, I'm not really active in Prism, I'm just a member, but I have this story to tell about my own relationship with my parent or with my child or their journey or our journey together. And some of the places that we have been able to continue to support those relationships and the visibility, one, we use Slack within Verizon for our internal chats. So we've created spaces for the greater Prism audience, but we also have another space for our proud parents. We encourage people to share pictures and tell stories. And if there's holidays or just moments that they want to share with the community and have someone else celebrate with them, we really try to foster that. And as I'm talking about some of these, if you have, tools or ways that within your business that you stay connected with one another or that you found success, we would love to hear it. I see there was just a question about where can you get these slides. They will be available when we are done. So outside of just that chat platform, quick and easy way throughout the workday to stay connected with others, we also look towards where are our employee communications coming from? Where is the culture being built? We're a really big company and we have a lot of different work groups. And those of us that are here from Verizon today, we're all over our business. And so we try to connect with where that's happening and how do we know what's going on with employee engagement as a whole? And then how can we weave our way into that? How do we make relationships with some of those folks that we can make sure that the word is getting out, it's being spread. And Ricardo and I both happen to work in those spaces of employee culture, 2 different parts of the business, but we're both able to influence, we're able to bounce ideas off each other, and we're able to leverage our relationships that we have to really dig in with what's going on in the business. And then also when we have an event coming up, being able to lean into those relationships and say, hey, we'd really appreciate some support around this event. How can we make that happen? And how can we get the word out to the employees in your work group? So we rely on that quite a bit. And then as things go, we make ourselves available for leadership rallies. You might call them something else in your business, different types of, meetings, an organizational meeting, leadership meetings, different different spaces, we make ourselves available in those to come and speak, to share information. It might just be general, what is Prism all about? Or what is Proud Parents? What is this series all about? Pride Month obviously is a big time when we are reached out to come and be a part of things. But we're relying on those relationships that we either put the message out there and say, hey, I would like to come to this, or we build a reputation that folks know who we are and they ask us. And then we're able to go and get in front of employees who aren't Prism members and talk about things like why pronouns matter, or, you know, making sure that we're caring for what the work at home experience is like for certain people, or what our current COVID world is like for parents who have to go back into the workplace. So there's just all this mix of different opportunities, and we really try to stay attached everywhere that we can and build on that. And one way that's really benefited us is there was some mention of, like, we've had leaders, executive leaders and other, you know, some of ours, some from other parts of our business, who've come and be a part of our event. And being a parent is an equalizer. So they might be an executive director or a VP, but in that proud parent space, whether they're talking to, you know, somebody that's one or two levels different from them, somebody who's a peer, we're all parents. And so there's that commonality that we have together, but then they're a part of it with us. They've experienced something with Prism. They've seen the value of what we're doing. And now when we have an event, they'll say to us, hey, do you mind if I post about that on social media? Do you mind if I share this event with my employees? I'm having this meeting, I'm having this lunch and learn. I want to talk about it. I want to make sure that I get it right. And so they're then doing that proactively for us and with us, and they're reaching spaces that we might not necessarily be able to. So they're getting onto Instagram, where we don't have presence just because of you know, the way that our business is set up. They're getting into their one-on-ones with their employees, and they're talking about us. So we just really try everywhere that we can to keep the conversation going, and get in front of employees in every way that we can. And it's expanding our membership. It's creating space for people to come and say, hey, I'm the parent of a transgender kid. I am not out at work, but I need somebody that I can talk to about my experience. These are all these different things that are happening, and the allyship that's coming along with it as well is just a really phenomenal thing. So I think that's a big piece of what we want to make sure that we reinforce, that it's not just about planning events and it's not just about telling stories. There's so many other ways to create connections and go outside of the programming itself for the big picture. So I'm going to hand things back now to Kima for a little bit of wrap up here. I'm going to check out some of your comments that you might have left and see where we can answer any questions too.
Thank you. So, you know, you said something I do want to share. We know how important narratives are. I do want to share an experience that that was happening on a VP call. So we had a VP leadership call, and my VP, his name is Ken, he's amazing, he wears the coolest glasses. Ken had a conversation where I was invited to come and just kind of talk about some things that were coming. And of course, I'm going to plug Proud Parents because this is my baby. And in that call, someone put in chat, can I share something? And then that kind of brewed and bubbled, and that person came off of mute and said, you know, my son was telling me that he had a secret. And this team, who is not Prism members, this team who is a group of individuals who work for this guy, surrounded him and loved him and walked him through the experience of what happens when you know your son has a secret and it's time that your son wants to share that secret. And we know what that is because we've been there. Just how to handle it. That happened. That I think stems from the vulnerability that our leaders have, our employees have, our members have. So I want to share that because I think when we look at how we can create this programming and how we can we can develop content that gets that same vibe and pulls people to us and lets us really care for one another. It's important to know like what to expect and what can come of it. So I put on here, and it's kind of a nod to the thing that they tell you when you have kids. There's no instruction manual, and there really isn't. Even for this, a lot of the planning in the past year or the last, at this point, 10 months has changed a lot. And based on our behavior, which was here listed on the screen, that's how we got to where we could be agile and change and address our members' needs as they grow. So first thing I would recommend, ask for feedback a lot. Bug people, don't bug people, but ask for feedback a lot. I want to know if my panels are diverse enough. If you see yourself when our people are talking, or when you come to one of my events, I want to know if you see yourself, or if you hear people that sound like you. Are we talking about the right things? Are we really exploring topics that get us out of our comfort zone and help us grow? And what do you want to see? Those key items are what's going to help you not only sustain the content that you created, but also help you develop new content. Be super mindful of time zones. You know, there are lunch and learns, which may sound like a lunch and learn for me. I'm in South Carolina, but for my peers that are in Seattle or in California, that's not lunch. They're barely getting through their first cup of coffee. So be mindful of time zones. When you invite families to a family movie night, make sure the kids are out of school. So have those kind of conversations as you're developing content. I really also want to kind of shout out that one thing that doesn't happen a whole lot that I hope that we continue to grow. So in that vulnerable space of knowing where we're at and where we're going, we are working very hard to engage chapters outside of the US. You know, we've got people in EMEA. So finding the right time of day to engage our EMEA chapter, our members in India and places that aren't on the same time zone as us, finding times that fit their needs is equally as important, because I can promise you there are parents that live there too. So that's kind of, you know, where I kind of want to open this up back to you all again. And one, give you the opportunity to ask questions, because this is meant to support you and your journey in developing content for your employees. But I also just want to give you guys an opportunity to share. So, all right, I see one already. How do you hold a virtual group movie night? So there's a couple of ways. Netflix Party is a Chrome extension. I don't think it's called Netflix Party. What is it? It's Teleparty, right? Teleparty. It's a Chrome extension that you can also put on other platforms that aren't Chrome. And that allows you to log in and watch a movie through Netflix. Everyone is responsible for their own Netflix account, but that's how you do that. We also are, this month, in honor of Hispanic Heritage Month, we're going to have a gentle reminder that is not a Proud Parents moment, but we're going to bring the babies with us, a gentle reminder that appropriation is wrong. And we're going to really celebrate what Day of the Dead is. And by doing so, we're going to educate kids by watching Coco together. So that moment is going to happen with us watching the movie in our own house on Disney+, but then also jumping on to an Instagram group chat and talking about it and engaging with one another, because to my knowledge, Disney+ doesn't let us watch movies together yet, so we will. That's a great question, though. What else? I'm scrolling back up. Katila and Jay, did we miss any through our talking?
Hey, Kimma, there was one question from earlier, and this person asked, what were the benefits of mixing parents of LGBTQI with LGBTQI parents of any kind, or of any kid, sorry.
Of any kid. Well, a lot of that goes back to that diversity of experience. And not just diversity of experience, but as a way of showing that even though I am LGBTQ and my child has not told me that she is, I'm raising my little ally, that I can love my child in the same way that someone can love their child who is LGBTQ, and vice versa. As a straight parent who loves their LGBTQ kid, you can show that we love our kids in the same way that someone who doesn't identify as LGBTQ and who doesn't have an LGBTQ kid. I also wanted that opportunity to open the door to kind of express that some of us aren't parents yet. And so by bringing in non-LGBTQ people, it really gave us an opportunity to, one, not tokenize anybody, but two, open up experiences that maybe are outside of the norm. So we had conversations around biomoms, and then we had conversations around going and using your flex spending card to buy sperm, because you can do that. So those kind of experiences allowed us to really get an overview picture with the hopes that we would touch somebody who needed to hear it at that time. A great question. I really like that one. Did you start as a, okay, another good question, I see you. So we did not start as a group for LGBTQ parents and then move to other parents. We started as LGBTQ people with common experiences. And along the way, again, not to make it super one-sided, but to bring that diversity of experience and thought, we started bringing in people who maybe can't speak in the same place. So as an example, I'll tell you what I mean by that. On our adoption conversation, we had people who had known parents who adopted their children because of the state getting involved. We had people like me who adopted their child through known birth parents or, through donor parents. And then we also had an adoptive child on the call to get a sense of what that looked like from her experience. When it came time to bring this to the leadership, I came on and expressed why this was important. When you're waiting on that phone call, it's really hard for you to do your job. When your kid is growing up and getting ready to go to college and you've just seen your kid go off to college, it's really hard to show up above the line at work. So giving that insight to our leadership and letting them see what our people go through humanizes us. And it lets them remember that at the end of the day, even though in our credo we say that we are Verizon, at the end of the day, Verizon has got a family full of parents who have challenges that go outside of what our work expectations are. So that's another great, you guys are really getting me with these great questions. I'm going to get emotional. I like this. I see you, Amber. So rainbow families. Oh, that's exciting. I kind of want to bring Jay into this too, because Jay, you get to see the ERG from a much broader kind of leadership perspective. So Amber is starting a Rainbow Families group in her area outside of work. And it's going to be open to LGBTQ parents and parents of LGBT kids. So very similar to our Proud Parents. From a functional and from an operational standpoint, what advice could you give?
Go and talk. So if somebody comes into the fold, make sure you go to the back of the room and talk to some of the people who maybe aren't the most vocal. What I've found is those are the folks who are going to be in it for the long haul. And what you'll find when you reach out, there's going to be a lot of people who want to share. There's going to be a lot of stories to be brought forward, and there's going to be a lot of energy in that front line. I would encourage you to just kind of on your tippy toes, take a peek and find out who's there, who maybe aren't oversharing, or maybe they aren't driving the agenda. Those are going to be some important people to help keep everything together. Maybe trust me a little bit on that one. You're going to want to make sure that you have some folks that can keep this going. And if I could be candid, Kim has been in this role and she's been developing this Proud Parent series, but you're going to want to make sure you find out people who can, one, help be a storyteller, and those storytellers are out there. But I think it's also important to find out who that next person is that's going to help run some of that programming, who can take on some of those creative leads, because it's important that not only if you have this idea today, the genesis of the idea is very much who you are and what you are going to make this be. It's important to also bring up some other folks to make sure they can help drive that home. And one other piece that, if I can be candid, especially for those who are, well, I guess it goes for those who are in the community or your children are in the community, have a conversation with your children. I've had some candid discussions with my sons. Hey, is it okay if I show up in this space in this manner? Is it okay if I share your story? Is it okay if I share my story with these people? Yes, we have ownership and dominion over who we are and what our narrative is, but as you're experiencing this program, which sounds beautiful, by the way, I think it's important to keep in mind that while while my children are part of who I am and how I exist, their stories are still theirs. I think it's important to have those conversations to make sure you're never oversharing what you would want them to have known. But also, my kids, I live in a rural part of Ohio, and so it can get bumpy, right? In different aspects of me expressing who I am within my community. I have conversations with them. Hey, I'm going to go ahead and share this. Is this okay? And so, as a parent, it's you need to make sure that everything from that perspective, at least in my opinion, makes sense. And believe it or not, those conversations are particularly meaningful as you're demonstrating what it's like to be a parent. Bear in mind, these two children are the only ones I know in my universe that are, ever going to call me dad. And so it's an opportunity for me to show them how to be a parent as well. And that comes through conversations with those you love that are closest to you. Hopefully I helped answer that question a little bit.
Oh, all the feels. Thank you so much. I truly appreciate that. And I'm seeing like all of like the great advice, like, thank you, Jay. So that's super important. And then remembering that it's a team effort, like always don't be afraid to ask for what it is that you need for. I know we had a lot of different conversations and we were able to really kind of look at this in many different lights and many different facets. So we definitely appreciate all of you joining us today to kind of talk about what I like to call is Kimma's baby or her second baby, and really kind of dive into what this meant for us, and then also what this means for you guys and your companies and how you can show up differently inside and outside of work throughout the community, or from an allyship perspective as well. I know there are a couple questions we may not have gotten into, but you can definitely reach out to any of us on the Pathable, LinkedIn, or any other kind of fantastic platforms that are available that you see fit and are comfortable with. And then that being said, just to kind of like close everything out, again, thank you all so much, truly appreciate it. And the nice thing about this is that it allows us to kind of extend out into other programs and other events that we can have. So we're gonna throw in a quick little teaser for you all to kind of see some other things to get your juices flowing on how we can show up and kind of own what it is that we're doing for the community. So thank you all and enjoy this quick short video.
Give us just a second, friends. We're gonna get this to show up. Sorry.
See, that was basically the teaser to the teaser. So we just showed you the sound.
Okay.
Or we just let you hear the sound. Now we're gonna go ahead and show you the video. Technology, how beautiful.
I promise it worked before. I know, we're a technology company too. Look at us. This is troubleshooting. This is what we're doing. We're flexing those troubleshooting skills together.
And by the way, thank you for all of the beautiful comments and the appreciation of the conversations. And it's like, I've just been kind of tearing back up over here too, so.
Yeah.
Kimma, does it feel like we might be able to see this video if I hit play?
I think so.
I see it for real this time. Teaser is over.
All right. Thanks everyone for your patience.
Oh my gosh, that makes me cry every time, you guys. I've seen it like 20 times. That's amazing. Thank you for letting us share that. So that is a sneak peek at one of the other programming that I think I can honestly say came from Proud Parents and the success and the lessons that we've learned from Proud Parents. Verizon is launching something called Earn Your Stripes with our ERG this month, where we're going to really kind of go back to the days where our community started, and we're going to learn a little bit of history and we'll see where we've come from so that we can see just how awesome we are and where we're going. So if you have any questions about that, or if you want to talk about that, send me a message or an email or a LinkedIn or a smoke signal. I don't care. Send me something and I'm happy to chat through that with you. Thank you guys for being here. We'll be on for any last minute questions, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your night.
Thank you all so much. This is a really good session.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here with us.
Yes.
Thank you. I think at this time, if there is anyone who's sticking around, you're welcome to come off mute and ask your questions for as much time as we have.
I had a question. Did you, with encompassing your entire group, sorry, my name is Joseph Covey from Orange County, California. I'm curious, I feel like I've missed the boat because my boys are seniors in high school, and I just love hearing all this. It makes me emotional because, you know, my boys are past their age now, but I still want to feel like I want to inspire their parents to keep going and what they need to do. And you guys just are so inspirational to me. But so the question I had asked on there was just breaking it up by ages, or you just found encompassing them all together was a better trick, because, you know, from toddlers, tweens to teens, they all have different, way different way they maneuver and react to things. Because I mean, I just got back from a cruise with my boys, a test cruise with the Disney Wonder, and there was no way they wanted to be around 13-year-olds, even though they're, you know, almost 18. So just curious.
That's a good question. I wish that we could show you what happens in Slack, Slack being the way that we communicate with each other in the office. When we had our first kind of big parent moment, it was our first call. We did have, we have one of our chapter leaders, Deb, was talking about the experience of her son coming out as trans and what that looked like. And, you know, she was able to step that along the way. But our moderator, who is a VP that I gave a job to, I said, hey, come moderate this call, is not a parent of an LGBT person. And he was sharing that his children are younger. And throughout that call, he was kind of talking about how, you know, I'm going to learn things from this. When we had one of our other calls, a fertility call, talking about the journey of becoming, you know, when I came on, I said, I'm finally mama. We were talking about that moment of finally becoming somebody's parent and what that looked like. The very first couple that you saw on the screen was someone who was out going through the process now. They weren't parents yet, but they were getting there. And what we have found is by doing it that way, we've really kind of created this community of parents. So that community that extends into our Slack channel. We do have a separate called Proud Parents. It's a separate channel. We can go talk to one another. People ask questions in there a lot. My kid just came out. What do I do? Hey, what are the laws around, you know, how I can support my trans child? What would you recommend that I tell my kid? You know, so those kind of things still happen. By diversifying the panels and by bringing in different kind of things for everybody, it opened up that space for parents to say, hey, let me give you a pro tip. Let me tell you what happens. That said, we have had sessions that are specifically for the littles. So our first story time, I actually have Ricardo's book. So our first story time was a book called Aiden Becomes a Brother. And I have the book, it's just not where I can grab it. We have another book that we've shared. So we typically gear those towards the little kids because our teenagers don't usually want to be around us right now anyway, but also because our little ones may feel a little left out, but you're always at work, so let me do something with you. So it's kind of a two-part long answer way of saying yes and no, we do it all. Thank you. I hope I did justice answering that, but I'm glad you asked.
That was great. Thank you.
Absolutely. Welcome. Where'd the puppy go?
He went to go play with his other fur brother. He was calling. I couldn't put them both up because Big Brother's much heavier.
Yeah, your laptop. Yeah, I have one downstairs that's like screaming right now because